Hello, everyone. Thank you for giving us a chance to humbly introduce our team to your company. We are Apollo 11 consulting team from Success First consulting firm based in Canada. And we are offering professional consulting services to both local and global enterprises. So we understand Apple is now still in a rapidly growing stage and would like to figure out a series of solutions to explore to the new market. So today, we are going to proudly introduce you our own framework that has been created numerous integrated strategies for several global companies in the past few years. So before that, I would like to give you a quick introduction to our diversified team members. All right, so I'm Cindy. I am originally from Beijing, and we have Afshin, Shakti, Nilu, and Kauri from Manitoba, Mexico City, and India. So five of us have over 10 plus years working experience in telecommunication industry, and we are all graduated from the Asper School of Business, University of Manitoba with an MBA degree. So while we study in Asper, we created this new framework named SNAKE. So it is the name named by our first name initial. And today I'm going to give you a brief idea of what is our framework look like. And next, Afshan will talk about how to use the SNAKE framework to analyze Apple's business level strategy. And Shakti is thrilled to introduce you how to use SNAKE to analyze Apple's corporate level strategy. Kauri is digging into the advantages of the SNAKE framework. And lastly, Nilu will give you an idea of why we choose SNAKE for Apple, but no other existing framework, which is including the U of M guideline resource-based view, VMOST, which is stand for Vision, Mission, Objectives, Strategy, Tactics, or we didn't choose MAX, which stand for Market Activated Corporate Strategy. Okay, so the SNAKE framework that we came up with was originally built up based on Porter's strategy framework, which is including external analysis, internal analysis, trade-offs and fit, strategic alternatives, evaluation, risk mitigation, implementation, and monitoring and control. However, after we researched deeply of the original framework, we decided to modify this module because of certain observing flaws. So the framework does not consider much about Apple's guide for creating objectives and goals in the organization and the roadmap that is to be followed by everyone. So we merged in 3 extra steps before work on the external analysis, which you can see in this flowchart. So we add vision, mission, and objectives. So moreover, we found out Porter's strategy framework is lack of resources to analyzing internal assessment. So to fix that, we inserted extra tactics and tools to enrich the original framework to support the outcomes. So now I'm gonna pass it to Afshan to give you an introduction of how does our SNAKE framework work for your business level strategy.
We are honored to present a SNAK to you today. SNAK is a generic framework, and as one of its advantages, it can be applied at both corporate and business levels. What's going to change at business level is the set of tools that we will use at each step as we will introduce it next. Our package today will cover VMO, strategic analysis, strategic choice, and then implementation and control can be also covered with our universal package if there is a need for that. Developing a strategy in a business undergoing a revolution in technological changes is a daunting proposition, as there is high level of uncertainty about needs of customers, most desirable products and services, and best activities and technological frameworks to deliver them Many companies go to imitation phase and lose their identity. To avoid this pitfall, we start with the core values within the organization and try to map them with the business level of strategy. This will start with vision, mission, and objectives, which allows us which allows the necessary alignment between business and corporate level of strategies as mentioned. Once desired objectives are identified, we start a strategic analysis with an accurate understanding of the industry through Porter's five forces model, with an extra force of power of complement providers. The goal is to identify key success factors within a profitable industry that allows the company to remain at the productivity frontier, while benefiting from opportunities and mitigating the identified risks. Over the time, a frontier shifts outward, and there is a need for constant improvement in operational effectiveness. Simultaneous improvement of cost and differentiation is possible only when a company begins far behind the productivity frontier or when the frontier shifts outward. What allows a company to achieve a superior profitability is a strategic positioning on the frontier edge. Such strategic positions emerge from three distinct sources which are not mutually exclusive and often overlap. With variety-based positioning, we decide to produce a subset of an industry's products or services. With needs-based positioning, we decide to serve most or all the needs of a particular group of customers. With access-based positioning, we decide to segment customers who are accessible in different ways. A strategy is the creation of a unique and valuable position involving a different set of activities. In this process, we segment and expand the market rather than being trapped in zero-sum competition. To identify those different set of activities, we conduct an internal analysis by combining VRIO and value chain tools. A valuable position by itself is not enough, as it attracts imitation by incumbents through repositioning and straddling. Distinctive value chain will allow us to combine a set of different activities towards identified strategic positions that are not imitable by other competitors. Such activities must fit and reinforce one another to lock out imitators by creating a chain that is as strong as its strongest link. To come up with the strategic alternatives to pursue, a company faces a variety of options. Obviously, pursuing all those alternatives at the same time is not feasible. So trade-offs are essential to strategy. They create the need for choice and purposefully limit what a company offers. To help company make the best decision, we look at three reasons behind rising of trade-offs, which are consistency in image or reputation of the company, type of activities chosen within the company, and limits on internal coordination and control. Accordingly, we develop a set of criteria to come up with relevant alternatives. Positioning on the other side, with positioning choices determine not only which activities a company will perform and how it will configure individual activities, but also how activities relate to one another. There are three types of fit to guarantee the sustainability of a competitive advantage. First order fit, simple consistencies between each activity and the overall strategy. Second order fit, having reinforcing activities. And at the deeper level, the third order fit, optimization of efforts. So that's basically coordination and information exchange across activities to eliminate redundancy and minimize wasted effort. And these are the most basic type of optimization. As the outcome of this stage, we are now having a number of alternatives taking us to our strategic positioning, and they are supported by a set of activities that feed and reinforce one another. What comes next is selecting the best alternative to pursue. To select among the developed alternatives in previous step, we now incorporate a sustainable financial analysis framework. With the emphasis on social, economic, and environmental aspects of each alternative, multi-capital scorecard will be used to come up with the best alternative to pursue. This will set the standard for the organization to know what to expect in coming months and years and a way to monitor the progress. As we incorporate your valuable expectations, we make sure your business is running as expected. To dive into more details on economic aspects, we make sure to have an accurate understanding of your current financial situation, which can support our initiative to reach our projected future financial situation. And finally, that brings us to the best alternative to pursue. But having the best strategic positioning and the best way to realize that there is no guarantee that we will be successful in the face of probable risk. Enterprise Risk Management (ERM) system is used to develop tactics as effective answers to questions designed around risk mitigation. Compromises and inconsistencies in the pursuit of growth in terms of continuity is one of the common risks among many organizations. If not properly addressed, it will erode the competitive advantage that we work hard together to develop for this company. And the company going to end up losing its original varieties or target consumers. So eventually the company loses its identity and tries to imitate all successful companies within the industry. And we need to mitigate that risk. With the application of ERM, we try to mitigate those risks and sustain the competitive advantage over time. Referring to the beginning of our journey, we started with the SNAC framework to develop business level strategies. This included going through vision, mission, and objectives of the company to add unifying element to our strategic positioning. Then we selected a specific set of activities by looking at both external and internal environments. Those selected activities were reinforcing and making it challenging for other competitors to imitate Apple in its strategic positioning. As there are many different ways to achieve the established goals, a number of best strategic alternatives were identified for Apple. Evaluating the developed alternatives, the most appropriate one was selected to allow Apple Board of Directors expectation to be satisfied in coming years and risk associated with them to be mitigated. Now the same framework can also be used to develop the corporate level strategy, and my colleague Shakti will cover that next.
Thank you, Afshin. Now, huge companies like Apple would need to not only have business level strategic decisions, but also corporate level business decisions to be made. Success First Consulting has you covered. Afshin had explained about how SNAC strategy formulation process would help us give you the best advice for your business level decisions. I would like to explain how the same process would be applied to corporate level decisions as well. Now, we would like to start off by analyzing your mission, vision, short-term and long-term goals, as we think it is quintessential to understand the essence of every company as a foundation and build an analysis on that. Then we would move on to analyzing the external environment of the industry under consideration. We feel the best way to understand all the static and dynamic aspects of a constantly changing environment is using the Porter's Diamond model with a few modifications. The Porter's Diamond model helps us identify all the factors that are vital in analyzing the industry or the industries that Apple is currently considering. We are aware that this model is mainly used to translate the domestic advantages to the global advantages. But we believe that this model can be used in two ways. That is, A, to actually analyze the external environment of the geographic region that Apple wants to expand into, or to actually analyze the external environment of another industry. Now, for this analysis, we would like to consider the following factors. A, the basic factor conditions like labor, capital requirement, and the human talent available in that industry or region. B, the demand conditions of the region or the industry. C, the state of the related, supporting, and complementary industries. And finally, the firm structure and domestic rivalry of the industry. Now, in addition to these four factors, we would also like to consider the dynamic factors like political, legal, social, environmental, and current technical advancements to get a comprehensive analysis of the external environment. Now, once we have gained insight about the external environments of the industries, we would move on to the internal analysis of the business units. For this, we would like to use the MAX framework developed by McKinsey. The MAX framework, that is the market activated corporate strategy, that helps us analyze your current business units and how they are currently being utilized. We also analyze the value added by the business unit to your company, as well as how this business unit is valued in the industry. Our main objective in this analysis is to determine the overall value of the business units and how they can be improved while syncing with the corporate capabilities. Now, in the MAC framework, we first determine the value of the business unit and try to place them on this MAX matrix on the basis of how well the Apple uses this business unit and what is the future potential of the business unit. Now, the x-axis measures the business unit's value creation potential as a standalone enterprise, and the y-axis shows how uniquely the company uses this business unit. Now, if the way the company extracts value is unique, then it is placed under the natural owner, else it is placed under one of the patents. Now, this MAC framework also helps us understand the synergies between business units and what business unit is actually adding value to the company and what business units is actually losing value from the company. Now, once we have determined the external and internal assessment, we move on to forming the strategic alternatives by deciding on the trade-offs and understanding the functioning of the business unit to find the optimum fit. Now, the following tests help us evaluate the presence of conditions required for diversification to truly create value. First is the attractiveness test. Now, the attractiveness test is that whether the industries under consideration are actually structurally active. Second is the cost of entry test. That is whether the cost of entry is actually capitalizing all the future profits. And third is the better off test, whether Apple is actually better off without these units in terms of their future potential or added value. Now, once this analysis is done, we would use one or more of the four concepts of Porter's corporate strategy. So, to actually come up with the strategic alternatives. So, the first of that is portfolio management. So, portfolio management is a concept that is primarily based on acquisition of autonomous units. Second is restructuring, and restructuring is based on seeking out business units that are underdeveloped, sick, or threatened with unrealized potential, and restructuring them would actually help them function in a better manner and ultimately adding value to your company. Now, the above two concepts help in creating value among autonomous units. The next two concepts that I'm going to mention is focusing on how to exploit interrelationships between businesses. So that is transferring skills and actually acquiring business units in which you can share activities. So, both the strategies above actually help us focus on creating synergies between business units. And finally, the next step would be evaluating the alternatives, for which we would use financial and non-financial criteria to reach a final recommendation. Finally, we would provide you with an implementation plan, and we would use the ERM that Afshin had mentioned in the previous section to evaluate the risks and derive the mitigation processes. Now, I would like to hand it over to Kauri to talk more about how our framework is the right one for you.
Thanks, Shakti. There are several reasons why we think our framework is the best fit for Apple. First is that it takes the best out of every model. We realize that all the frameworks we study have missed something or had disadvantages if used by themselves. Therefore, we study numerous methodologies, theories, tools, and techniques such as Porter's, Hill and Jones, BMOST, MAX, BRIO, Cotter, among others, identify their advantages and disadvantages, so we could then create our own framework with the best of each of them. Second is that it considers all perspectives. As previously explained, our framework covers all bases: mission, vision, objectives, internal and external assessment, identification of competitive advantages, strategic choice, and implementation from a corporate and a business level. Therefore, there is nothing we leave out or do not consider at the moment of analyzing what is the best strategy for your organization. Third is that it works with any industry. We know that Apple counts with several products in different markets. So, due to the flexible nature of our framework, it works with any industry. Therefore, if Apple wishes to continue diversifying its portfolio, the framework will help Apple determine which are the best alternatives for diversifying or expanding its business. Fourth is that it considers the dynamic of the external environment. The technology industry is fast-paced and it is constantly changing. Thus, Apple needs a strategy that takes into consideration the dynamics of the environment in all perspectives. Most of the frameworks out there partially analyze the environment or evaluate it either from the business or the corporate level, but not both. Or even worse, they don't even take into consideration the external analysis. This lack of deep knowledge in the industry leads to create short-term strategies that do not give long-lasting results. However, because our framework mixes different tools and techniques, we perform a deep analysis in the industry in all their perspectives, making us understand the external environment better and formulating an effective long-term strategy. Fifth is that it analyzes qualitative and quantitative data. Another major difference of our framework is that it analyzes qualitative and quantitative data for the current situation of the organization and the possible strategies. By analyzing both types of data, it allows us to have a more accurate understanding of the situation and a more precise forecast of the strategy to be implemented. Sixth is that it is consistent. Although we use different methodologies, we made sure that the entire framework has a flow, and all the steps are consistent with each other. We spent considerable time formulating the vision, mission, and objectives, which are the foundation in the following steps. So in the end, we come up with a strategy that is perfectly aligned with the entire methodology used. We are confident that our framework has the right methodology and tools to provide Apple with the best and most profitable strategy. Now, Neil is going to talk about why other frameworks won't work with Apple.
Thanks, Kauri. We considered some other frameworks and tools that may be applicable to Apple, but we found some issues with them which made us take them out of consideration. One of them is the resource-based view. The resource-based view is a framework where the consideration of the external environment is kept to a minimum and the focus is entirely on the company and its current resources. The strategies are designed to make full use of the available resources to bring out the company's full potential. We considered this for Apple as we thought it would suit assessing Apple's internal activities by breaking down the elements to be considered as resources. Even by definition, the framework has some significant disadvantages. Not considering the external environment means that the internal analysis solely stands on what the company can do, limiting its capabilities. The framework does not have a clear way to identify and develop resources which could have high potential. It limits innovation to operational excellence, which means any competitive advantage would be short-lived. It works on the assumption that the market and competition would be stable and predictable, which makes it ill-suited for unpredictable and constantly innovating tech environment where Apple operates. In this type of environment, any sustainable advantage gained through this framework will eventually be dragged down to a null value. It fails to take under consideration that organizational learning, adaptability, and improved processes can add to high potential resources. It is rare to have resources that match the VRIO criteria due to the limit of the criteria itself, the unclear and indeterminate nature of the VRIO itself, and the ambiguous nature of the term resources. Another framework which we considered was the VMOST. VMOST is a framework which analyzes a company's capabilities by analyzing its vision and mission, formulating objectives based on these, designing and analyzing strategies to address the objectives, and to arrive at tactics to implement the finalized strategies. We considered this framework as it was quite structured and addressed the requirement of including the mission and vision of a company, which we believe is crucial to arrive at the optimum strategy both at business and corporate levels. We did find some issues with this framework which made us decide against it. The framework puts a lot of emphasis on analyzing the external environment using multiple tools like Porter's 5 Forces, PESTLE, and Porter's Diamond among others, but the internal analysis or analysis of a company's capabilities relies only on a SWOT analysis, which we believe might be insufficient because it might result in missing some crucial information that could be identified using other tools like VRIO. While the framework on a whole is very structured, individual elements are not so. Tools like SMART can be used to identify objectives, but formulating strategies and tactics are not given a defined structure, which results in inconsistency in the procedure, making it difficult to keep track of the processes for each strategy or tactic formulation. Another framework which we considered was the UFM Guidelines Framework. The Asper School of Business at the University of Manitoba has formulated a set of guidelines to enable business students develop critical thinking while analyzing organizational cases and formulating strategies. This strategy was considered due to its structured approach to strategy formulation and utilizing well-established tools like Porter's 5 Forces and VRIO analysis. One of the major reasons for not considering this framework was that it did not consider the company's vision and mission in the analysis, which we believe would cause an inconsistency in the strategy's design and the overall tone of the company. With the Porter's 5 Forces and VRIO as tools for external and internal analysis, the framework gives a decent insight into the environmental and internal factors, but this also means that factors that could be identified by other tools might be ignored. While working perfectly well enough for a company to strategize in their current locations, the framework does not provide additional capabilities to strategize for expansion either nationally or globally. One of the tools that we considered was PESTLE. PESTLE is a tool that is used to have a bird's eye view of an organization's capabilities in its current environment by assessing its political, economical, social, technological, legal, and environmental factors. This tool was considered in the place of Porter's Diamond model and Porter's 5 Forces for external analysis due to it addressing major forces that can affect a company's existence at the corporate level. One reason PESTLE was dropped in favor of Porter's models was due to its highly exhaustive list of factors under each forces. It seemed to ultimately dilute the analysis as it aimed at a flawless strategy as a result, which we believe might be extremely difficult to arrive at. Another reason for not using PESTLE is due to its extreme flexibility. The tool has been modified many times to fit an organization's view that we believe it is not stable enough. Different forces have been considered, modifying the acronym, which strays far from its original intention. We considered Porter's model to be stable for their intended purposes. I turn this over to Cindy for conclusion of our presentation.
So our framework is an integrated solution to analyzing vision, mission, objective, strategic analysis, strategic choice, implementation, and monitoring control. So we strongly believe that our framework is the best one that could bring you up the best solution and the best strategy to Apple in both the business level and the corporate level. So thank you very much. This is the end of the presentation, and we are open for questions and concerns.